And welcome back to Citizen Extra. We want to bring you news as it happens on the program. We're taking you straight to a news conference that's being held by the Kenya Commission on Human Rights. They are discussing, of course, the extrajudicial killings by the police. Let's listen in.
Do not get the full attention of the law. We have had cases of attempted interference with the evidence. The most classic one being the Kwekwe case, where if we didn't come in strongly, it would have actually been taken that Kwekwe was a threat to the police officers, that she was wielding a machete, and she was able to overcome and overpower about 4 police officers who then shot her. But the civil society organizations, the human rights, ourselves, IPOA and all this, were on that case with Muhuri and the rest, and we were able to secure convictions. As we speak, those police officers are serving their jail terms. So that is why on this press conference here we've called for an independent body, and we've been really keen on establishing the National Coroner's Office, so that this will be an independent office that will actually carry out investigations and help us get convictions. Currently we have 46 active cases that IPOA is looking at, and out of those 46 cases where police have been accused of misusing their firearms, we've only been able to secure 5 convictions. That tells you that there could be a problem in terms of the ability of the officers, who are the police themselves, to really conduct the investigations and help us secure those convictions. And that is something we are not hatujalala. That is why we are pushing to have the national coroner in place. And as my colleague said, that will help us a lot. Let me respond to the question that Brenda asked, and I think this question comes many times. Why don't you respond when the police are killed? Why do you always respond when criminals kill the public? That is precisely why we actually a nation and a state, unless you want us to actually degenerate into lawlessness. I've repeated in the past, this is not Hobbes' state of nature. We are a country governed by the Constitution. We have the National Police Service Act. We have our Constitution, and even as the statement said, that Constitution, although we are working on it to abolish the death penalty, still provides for lawful death. So you cannot actually, what happened in Pangani, if those guys were criminals, they should have been arrested, put through the court process, now wahukumiwe kifungo cha kunyongwa. That is fine because it's still in our law books. But you cannot have a society whereby we have the laws in place, and then the police tell us, anyway, it's become too much for us to follow those laws, and therefore let us do what we want to do because we are the police officers. Our insistence is on the rule of law, it's on the Constitution, and as long as it's not provided for in that Constitution, we are not going to sit back and say the police who are playing to the public gallery are doing the right thing. But having said that, we also care about the police. Our commission, the National Police Service Commission, was in the forefront of the Philip Ransley Task Force. We're in the forefront of the Naikuni Implementation Task Force. And as we speak, we also want the welfare of the police to be taken care of. And we are happy that at least there is now an insurance in place. A police officer who loses his or her life in the line of duty is given 2 million. They have a medical cover, outpatient 100,000, inpatient 1.5, and those are the things we want to see, because we want to take care of the police even as they take care of us. But we cannot be stuck on the conversation of why are they killing, or when they get killed, why do we not say anything, and when they kill the public, why are we so quick to say what we say? We are so quick to say what we say because we are guided by the law and the rules of this land, and that is what they require us to do. I'll let my colleagues respond to the other questions.
Okay, I'll take the question by Rajab. I'll talk a little bit to what you've asked Brenda about how we see the public supporting instances of killings, and who then are we speaking for if the public is saying it is okay. And Nicholas, your request for an update on what is happening with the trial, and I think your specific question was, have investigations happened? So I'll start with the unreported cases. And I'll speak from as part of the Police Reform Working Group, we come with different areas of expertise. There's a team involved in documentation and advocacy. There's a team that's involved in casework and direct interventions. So our work has always been casework, and that's what the angle I shall come at this from. We have received many cases. The response by the Police Reform Working Group and civil society is not only when it is someone of measure. One of the things, for instance, we've always said is, even before we reacted to the case of Willie, Joseph and Josephat, we had been handling similar cases for the last 12 years. We've had many persons who have reported cases to us who have been part of an investigation, a prosecution, or their case has gone through the whole criminal justice system. This was an incident that became particularly personal to us because for the first time, previously we've escorted clients through this process, but for the first time we were approaching a police station and asking for an OB to see if our colleague was there. We were calling out at the back of the cell and asking, shouting his name, the same way many of our clients have said, nimeenda kwa polisi, nikaitana hapo nje, sikusikia, hakuna mtu alijibu. So that became particularly personal for us. And
you're listening just to an excerpt of an ongoing news briefing by the Kenya Commission on Human Rights. Of course, that's the NGO body, human rights body. They are commenting on the extrajudicial killings, a topic which resurfaced after a weekend revelation through a video of the ganging down of 2 suspected teenage gangsters in Isli. We'll stay on top of that story for you. Let me just come for a quick comment with my analysts in studio, Javas Bigambo and Vincent Kimosop. One of the questions the commissioner there was addressing was the fact of, who are you speaking for if the public seems to have been okay with those killings? What does it say about the state of our country when the public, laud the breaking of the law by law enforcers?
I think the first thing is that the Constitution very clearly, Article 26, talks about the sanctity of life, that every person has a right to life. So here you're looking at even the criminals together with the police, and those rights are inalienable. They should be protected at all times. What I see this is people are responding to a frustration of a failure of the system, because you have a situation whereby criminals at times are arrested, they are taken to police cells, and because of corruption, inefficiency, and of course the collapse of our criminal justice system, they are released back to the society. And we've actually had instances whereby people, when you report, the same information is used against you, that who are you going to take us? We will actually deal with you. So you have a frustrated resignation, therefore, on the part of the citizenry, and that's why they are appreciating what the police are doing when they eliminate some of these people whom they have meted injustice with them. But nevertheless, from a professional point of view, we should defend the truth at all costs. So what we're hearing the Human Rights Commission saying is that it is important for us to stand for the truth. The reality is, if somebody has committed an offense, they should be taken through the process, and then they are apprehended. But now the failure to that is that we have had instances whereby the human rights institutions or defenders only come and they speak for example, even per se criminals, and we do not have situation whereby even human rights institutions come out strongly to defend the police. I remember engaging a police officer, and one of the questions he asked was, do police officers have human rights? How comes we do not see those human rights organizations when police are on the receiving end? So I think we need to have the narrative to be complete, to defend not only the rights of victims, but also defend the rights of policemen. And I think at this point I want to raise an issue about also failures of our institutions. And if you remember the days when we had Maina Kiai, and I think I will courageously say, serving as the chairman of the commission, we had a more vibrant, a more engaging, and you can see today in the commission, it's actually the vice chair who is the face of the institution. And that actually raises questions about do we also have strong institutions, why is it that the spokesperson of such a commission is the vice chair? So there are also other questions that are emerging about how do we ensure that the vibrancy, the resurgency, the consistency, the commitment, and also the focus of a strong human rights state is maintained, not just when we have the public on the receiving end, but also when we have police, because there is no life that is better than the other.
Right. Jarvis, you know, statements like this, so close to an election, cause anxiety, especially in the term of use of force. And you remember this from the sad scenes that we saw in previous electoral cycles. What concerns do you have, if any, in terms of the force's ability to enforce the law using measured force?
Well, I take this perspective that the recent executions of the two criminals has compelled us to traverse the jurisprudential quagmire that actually is unavoidable. One, question arises. The question of, do the police have discretion to eliminate criminals when they come face to face with them? And when you look at also our criminal justice system, to what extent is it effective in processing, or handling criminal matters to the extent too that does not threaten the security of the police? Because the question has arisen, or the debate has taken a different angle, that a number of these criminals are taken through the criminal justice system or the justice system, and then they are let scot-free after some time, and then in the end they track or they trace the policemen who apprehended them and take them down. So as we engage in this debate, I think sobriety must be our lot. Here, it gives us space to score the entire jurisprudential field and how it can work and should work for us as Kenyans. The thing is this, and even Kenyans who've suffered in the hands of criminals, those who've been carjacked, those who've been abducted, personally I've also suffered in the hands of criminals in this city. And that does not mean that I should have bias when it comes to sober debate on the issue of handling the rights debate of criminals, etc. Now, we know very well that our constitution and our law is very generous to the extent that every person is presumed innocent until determined guilty by the trial facts, who are the judges through the courts. But here what we may need to do is to make sure that objectively too, we seek to secure the rights of common citizens, but also secure the rights of the police, and also make sure that those who are found on the opposite side of the law, these are criminals, are taken through a criminal justice system that is watertight, to the extent that we may want to start imagining or debating, should bail be a facility that is afforded to those who are facing such kind of charges. And the other thing should be as well that where does the question of the personalization of security come in when a criminal has been caught? For instance, there is also another clip that is doing rounds on social media of a plainclothes policeman struggling with a thug who has got two pistols, pocketed. So in such a situation, who should the police protect? Their own lives, the lives of onlookers and the general public, or the life of that criminal who is actually dangerously armed and could pull the trigger at the blink of an eye? So this question actually invites us to debate. And while the commissioner, the vice chair to the National Commission has spoken, George Marara, to the issue of the rights being upheld, and looking at the sanctity of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights as a Chapter 15 commission constitutionally established, one then raises the debate that even if we get to have the head of or the coroner in this country who will expedite and be helpful in weaving together the issue of the narrative that helps to apprehend or put behind bars policemen who are deemed to be trigger happy, what about the place of making sure that criminals or or the society gets rid of crimes or criminals before they happen, and not waiting for it to happen and then try to come up with some stopgap measures.
Right. Just as a final question, Vincent, I want to return to what I posed to Javas. This sort of report around extrajudicial killings happening so close to an election, brings to memory the Philip Alston report, if you will recall it. And it's worrying because at the end of the day, we've also heard previously, though not related to this particular case, but previously we've heard from the opposition concerns around the kind of arming of the police service, in the last few months. Are you concerned at all about the ability of the service to, uphold the law with the kind of force that they will have in an election period?
Yes, I am. If you look at the Constitution, the principles of what constitutes a free and a fair election, one of them is secret ballots, and then the other four, and then the number 5 is the issue of free of corruption, intimidation, and violence. And you've already seen that we've had incidences where people have lost their lives, even by the members of the public, courtesy of political competition. We saw in Ruaraka, and I think you also saw the violence in Migori and other places. Now, when you now start seeing that moving to the police, and again also in an election year, if you remember very well, in 2007, 2008, when we had the post-election violence, from the report, more people actually died out of bullet shots, even more than the people who were. So when you look at all that, there is a reason to be concerned. Now, an even bigger problem is the normalization of the culture of violence. If you listen to the press conference, one of the questions our journalist was asking, the human rights activists, whom are you defending if the members of the public are okay with this?
Right.
So this is not the kind of a society where we would want to build. If you look at what the current president in Philippines is struggling with is when you have like a narcotic state where really the culture of violence is so entrenched that actually even the police have to negotiate with criminal gangs for them to access certain areas. That definitely is not the kind of
violence
society
is not normal
that we would want to have.
Yeah, violence is not normal, and something we can't hear enough. And thank you for your thoughts. We're going to return to more analysis with our governance experts very shortly, talking about the KPMG audit of the voter register, which has commenced, as well as other political matters. But I want to switch gears briefly to the question of cancer and a high-profile cancer death by the former TV presenter Janet Ikwakanini, who passed on last week, has shed new focus on the fight against cancer. And joining me now is oncologist Dr. Catherine Nyongesa, and a little later we're going to be speaking to nutritionist Wanjiko Njenga. But let me begin with you, Doctor. Good morning, and thank you for coming in. What would you say the state of cancer care is in the country?
So, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. So, cancer is a big problem in the country, and as we know, it is the third leading cause of death in Kenya. Just comes third after number 1 being infectious diseases, number 2 being cardiovascular diseases, which include high blood pressure, and cancer now it's number 3. In the country, we see about 40,000 new cancer cases, and out of this we are losing over 28,000. So you can see it's a very high number of our patients losing the battle to cancer. And we can say in the country there has been a lot of effort, both from the private sector and from the government, to put together so that they can fight this cancer menace. And I'm also aware that the National Hospital Insurance is also assisting cancer patients to ease the financial burden on the families.
Let's talk about that financial burden, as we saw in the case of the late Janet, and for many families this still remains such a major problem. Would you walk us through the kind of costs that a family has to bear monthly when dealing with a cancer patient?
So the cost of cancer care is very expensive. I mean, one, you start from the diagnosis itself. You know, a cancer patient, before they are confirmed to have cancer, they go through a lot of journeys. First, you go to the nearest healthcare center where you present with initial symptoms, and probably the cancer, you know, doesn't come announcing itself that this is cancer. So cancer can mimic other symptoms, and patients use a lot of money to treat other diseases before the cancer is confirmed. So there's a financial implication at that point in time.
Right.
As they move on and navigate through the medical system, now they arrive to the referral hospital. They have to be taken a biopsy, and that costs money, and some of them need a surgical intervention. From surgery, then they have to move on to chemotherapy and radiotherapy depending on the type of the cancer. So you find these patients don't spend less than 100,000, you know, at the beginning for them even to reach to the final stage where they need now full treatment. And on average, a patient may spend between 500 to millions of shillings depending on the type of the cancer and the kind of treatment the patient has to go through.
And that is, you haven't even talked us through the drugs that are used, and there's been concern about their availability and the costing of the same. What can you tell us about that?
Our pharmaceutical industry has played a big role, and I can tell you for now, most of the drugs, even targeted therapy drugs, are available in the country. In the past many years, there was a notion that all patients have to go to India to access treatment, but I would say over 90% of the cancer cases, the medicine is available locally, though some of them, especially the new drugs, the targeted therapy drugs, are quite expensive and out of reach for most of the patients.
I want to bring in our nutritionist now, Wanjiko Njenga. Good morning, and thank you for being with us. Aside from the drugs used and the different therapies that cancer patients have to go through, nutrition is a critical element to get into remission and recovery. Tell us about the specifics of the kind of food that those living with cancer will be looking for and the associated cost.
Thank you for that. Well, nutrition starts even way before cancer. It's very important that we learn to take care of ourselves. How is our lifestyle before getting sick? The things that affect us majorly is our diet and how active we are. So it is important to make sure that we watch on our feeding habits. This includes the number of times you eat in a day, your food portions, and your health plate. By health plate, I mean half of your plate needs to be vegetables. Vegetables are readily available. These are all the green leafy vegetables, like skuma, spinach, the kienyeji vegetables. The other quarter of the plate represents the carbohydrates, where we insist on whole carbohydrates. These are foods that have a lot of fiber, like cereals like Weetabix, oatmeal, brown rice, brown chapati. These are things that are available that we can get. Then the other quarter represents the proteins, which are both plant and animal proteins.
Right, but if you could talk me specifically about cancer patients and the food requirements for them.
Yes, so when we go to cancer, when it comes to managing cancer with nutrition, there are a number of factors that we need to look at. When the patient comes to us, we need to assess them. So is this patient malnourished? Can this patient tolerate food? Can the patient eat? So when it comes to preparing the diet plans, there are principles that we need to look at in terms of variety, how the food is adequate, if the food is balanced, if the food is going to provide enough energy, and if it is nutrient dense. So this includes all the foods that we have. If it is it has to be balanced, okay? Yeah,
and of course their tolerance depending on the treatment that they're undergoing. Thank you for that. Catherine, Dr. Catherine, let me return to you. As an oncologist in the entire treatment, the cancer chain, which area still concerns you in terms of the ability of local healthcare providers to meet the need?
Thank you very much. I think one of the concerns is that the number of government facilities that available to take care of the needy patients. We need a form of like a social support because we know only a few families are able to even afford the National Hospital Insurance Fund, and we have majority of the people who are not employed. And unfortunately, cancer does not choose. It can strike anybody, whether you have money or you don't have money. And I worry most about the people who have no insurance at all.
Right.
And like even they don't have money to come to Nairobi, even to the National Hospital for treatment. So you find that if our government could strengthen the county referral hospitals, this will go a long way in assisting the common mwananchi so that they can access treatment, because as I said, cancer is the third leading cause of death in the country. So it is very common, just like malaria, infectious diseases. It's very common even in the rural side. So for this person, how can they access treatment timely and get cured? Because cancer can be cured if you present early. And if there is delay in treatment, then you find most of the cancer cases, when they come to Nairobi, they are a bit too advanced even for cure.
Right, and of course that's always the most difficult part. But at the prevention stage, perhaps let's start there, and discovery and early detection. What is it that you think we're missing out on? A lot of times we'll hear blame being laid on the current modern lifestyles that we have that are very sedentary to an extent. And the other bulk of the blame also goes to early detection, that we're not doing enough self-tests or going out for regular checks. What is your perspective?
All those are true sentiments. I would also add that, also people fear the word cancer. They always imagine it's a death sentence, and probably if you have symptoms and you are worried there could be cancer, some people do not go to hospital. So it is a wake-up call that in case you have any ailments and you are being treated and you are not improving, because cancer can mimic other diseases, that one needs to go for check and to confirm if it is cancerous so that you get timely treatment. The other cause of the rise of cancer cases is the population. Our population is growing every year, and the cancer cases are bound to increase. And then the other thing is the awareness. Just like we are creating awareness today, there are more Kenyans who are becoming more and more aware about cancer, the common symptoms, and how they can present to the healthcare facility for treatment. And then the other thing is prevention has not been very much absorbed in our country, but we know that we have a lot of cancer survivors who are in cancer support group, and they are going out there preaching in churches, in barazas in the village, trying to create awareness, because in the past most of our people were not aware about cancer.
Right.
And they used to believe probably it is witchcraft. But now it is reaching more people, even the youth. They are aware that cancer is it's real, and they're actually bringing their parents to hospital.
Right, and the late Janet Chikwa Kanini was one such champion. May she rest in peace. I thank you very much for your perspective this morning. Oncologist Dr. Catherine Nyongesa and nutritionist Wanjiku Njenga. We want to switch gears now and return to the question of politics and the upcoming election. And KPMG has announced that it is now auditing the voter register. That is despite a new legal battle that has been launched 4 days after the High Court dismissed a case by court that was challenging the KPMG tender on the award rather for the audit of the voter register. A similar suit was filed by activist Okia Omtata. I return to my analysts in governance, Javas and Vincent. Broadly, do you believe that the kind of legal challenges we've seen surrounding IEBC and this election is reaching the point where we could say it's unprecedented in an electoral period? Javas.
Well, of course it is altogether baffling that we get to find ourselves in a situation where the body mandated to handle, oversee, etc., all the way from planning the election, general election, is being battered or buffeted by the storms of lawsuits, every rising day. And agreeably, of course, this inhibits its smooth planning, smooth operation, much as, of course, the issues that at times are raised are fundamental. But what is the question arises as to what is the wisdom behind all these, all these litigation attempts? And we know very well that it may precipitate a constitutional question if at all these issues arise, or if at all the court ruling would have been such that it hampers the IBC from continuing on with its processes, or for example the issue of the devices that are requisite for conducting the election.
Right,
so
right. Hold that thought, Vincent. As Jarvis has rightly argued, I mean, if there's a challenge in law, if there's something questionable about the process, then it should be questioned. But do you think that ought to be secondary to the fact that the law does not operate in a vacuum? There is an election to be held on the 8th of August, or is it the other way around, that the rule of law cannot be secondary to the fact that we have timetables and deadlines? Now, our national values, one of the 17 is the rule of law. And we of course know that we are a constitutional democracy. But you also appreciate that within the same constitution, we have institutions that have been mandated to perform certain responsibilities, and one of them is the IEBC, that is actually responsible for conducting elections on every second Tuesday of August. So yes, we have to also balance some of these things, that you cannot restrain the right for people to seek redress when they see injustices in court, but also we have to balance that vis-a-vis the element of delivering the overall public good. What is the point of actually ensuring that, or working through the legal system and disempowering the commission to a point whereby they are not able to deliver the election? In fact, I'm actually very concerned at this point that the IEBC has not projected greatly the confidence that they are able to deliver elections in time, and part of the reason has been external due to all this litigation. Look, for example, at the issue of the audit of the voter register, something that is very central to the delivery of a free and fair election. If you remember, in the petition in 2013, at the heart of the petition was the voter register. So, but that was part of the minimum agreements through the team that agreed on the reforms that you've witnessed recently. But the audit has not begun because of court processes. Yet the audit is also important so that we remove any doubt of double registration, or also having dead voters in the voter register. So I think we have to balance these things, and so that we also are in tandem with reality and deliver the greater public good, which is a free and a fair election, and also give Kenyans an opportunity to either renew the contract of the current leaders in power, or also have new people in place. So that balance is key. Yeah, and of course that audit is now ongoing despite the latest litigation bid. KPMG has told us as much. But Jarvis, do you believe politicians are using the courts to tamper with the process?
There is unavoidable mischief by some political elements because of reasons that are obvious. And if at all it was prudent for them to purely raise all those issues that are actually in line with public good and national good, then we can say that in a way the mischief could be seen in the timing and the manner in which all this filing is done. But I think also politicians, when they are speaking to the concerns that they have about even whether it is the IEBC itself, it should be in such a manner that does not seek to stifle the work of the IEBC, but actually in a manner to help it. And also they should speak about the confidence they are trying to boost in terms of the functionality of the IEBC, much as we know very well that the help for IEBC must not be external, it must only be internal. There is the respect of the institution that that body is. And in the end, whether it is a question of the public confidence in the IEBC, I think it is real to note that politicians are a very vital cog in helping to boost public confidence in the IEBC. For instance, a question arises that if at all the debate about the issue of parallel tallying and whatnot, all these issues, while it is necessary to do it privately for purposes of possible litigation if needs be, but coming out to try and demonstrate competition or the urgency of that task rivaling that which IEBC, the constitutionally mandated body, is doing, then itself speaks to the doubt that even these politicians have in that body, and to that great extension, it punctures public confidence. It does not boost it in the work of the IEBC.
Right. Tell me this, Vincent. Should the court entertain to whatever extent the new suit that has been filed by Okiya Omtata, where does that leave KPMG and IEBC?
First of all, remember, even the audit by KPMG was supposed to have been finalized by now. If you look at the timelines that were agreed in the elections, the amendment law that was passed, that actually paved way to the current commissioners. Now, number two is also that we have the Constitution is supreme. You cannot deter anyone from seeking redress from court. Now, this is where leadership, for example, comes in on the part of the Chief Justice. Maybe have this thing be heard and determined, instead of having a one judge, have a three-judge bench, listen to it, and let it be expedited within the minimum time possible, so that justice is not only seen to be done, but also it is actually evidently done, and then this issue is dispensed with, and the process can continue. Because if it drags, and then eventually we have we go to an election without having an audited voter register, and then it becomes an issue during the elections come August 8th, which we cannot move ahead. And remember, we also have what Javas has pointed out, political parties pointing out that they will have parallel voter tallying centers. So you are seeing then we are actually precipitating chaos, and this is when now the issue of leadership and magnanimity comes in. And the challenge therefore goes to the CJ to see that this thing is expedited, and also for IEBC to reach out more to the political parties, ensure that there is a consensus built on this process, and then finally to continue projecting confidence. Because if we are not confident of the performance of the IEBC, that in itself might actually dent even the turnout and our ability to have a free, fair and credible elections come August the 8th, 2017.
And I thank you for your views throughout the program, the last 2.5 hours on Citizen Extra. Javas Bigambo and Vincent Kimosop, governance and political experts. Thank you for speaking to us this morning. We want to return to a report that we've been following for you, and that is on the question of food and water security in the country. You will remember, of course, a release by the Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company indicating that the levels at the Ndakaini Dam, which is a major supplier of water to the city, reaching unprecedented lows at 25%. Joining me now to discuss this and water security across the country is the Nairobi Water MD, Engineer Philip Gishuki. You're welcome to the program this morning. I want to begin from that point of concern. Are we just basically sitting duck in the capital and across the country, hoping that rain in its sufficiency or insufficiency will be the way out of the water scarcity problem that we're facing?
Thank you very much. One very important issue we need to know as a public is that the water sources for Nairobi is basically in Ndakaini Dam. We also have Sasuma Dam and Ruiru Dam. But the major source is Ndakaini Dam, where we get about 85% of the water that is consumed in the city of Nairobi. And this is the dam that is really affected by the drought, because as you have rightly said, by this morning we were around 24.5% full, and this is the lowest ever we have ever gotten, and mainly is due to lack of rains. For instance, last year by this time we had received about 148 millimeters of rain. But by this time, we have only received 80 millimeters of rains. This is not enough to generate runoff that is captured in the dam. Basically, this is the biggest challenge that we have.
Right, and you're talking about lack of rains, but in 2017, really, the eyes of the public are also on companies such as yourself for failure to innovate or to embrace technology in terms of how you harvest water year-round.
We harvest rain the year round, and if you check what happened is that last year the rains were not adequate because what we got in the wrong rains of April were shorter than the previous years, and this is among the causes why we did not get adequate water stored in the Kaine Dam. And it was the problem was exacerbated in the short rains of November, December, where we did not get any rains substantial to generate runoff. So the issue here is that as a nation, we need more storage. We need more storage developed so that we can be able to harness the flood water that is generated now and again. And what is required is we invest more in storing of water at the national level and also at the individual level, because also at the individual level there is a lot of rain that falls, and even in March, which was some rains were registered even in Nairobi, but basically people were not able to harness that because they have not developed their building in a way that they can be able to harness the water.
And engineer, that is true, but I suppose the point that I'm driving at, and not blaming you for not making rain, if you will like, and our ability to harvest it, but there's so many water solutions available in 2017, and a company such as yours, which is providing the capital with water, is expected that it should be going the extra mile in terms of innovation, partnering with global solution providers in terms of water purification, etc., to ensure that you are able to meet the needs of the city. What is it that you have done as Nairobi Water?
Exactly. One of the things that we are doing currently, we are looking at the option of recycling of the wastewater. And this is a very important source of water, because every day, if we bring on board 400,000 cubic meters of water, if we treated even 50% of that, it means that 200,000 cubic meters of water is available for use. And this basically would want to focus more on the water uses, like for instance those industries who do not use water for consumptive use, like paper industry, hide and skin industries, steel industries, who just basically do not use that water for consumption. We consume a lot of water, and those are the ones that we want to target by the recycled water. At the same time also, we want to look at the conjunctive use of the service water, because largely Nairobi gets water from the service runoff, that is the storage in the Kaine Dam and the rivers. But we would want also to focus on the groundwater, and not the groundwater that not the boreholes that are developed by individual private people. We want to develop field of wells, such that we can be able to generate about something to close to 10% of the water to come from the groundwater. And this we are focusing. Actually, even yesterday we had a lengthy discussion together with our board, and we are looking at the possibility of having areas with the good aquifers being identified, and we get that as an alternative source of water.
Right, and the period of time between the discussion and the project is always the concern. When will we actually see that action? But since you've talked about aquifers, let me just broaden our conversation beyond Nairobi to the rest of the country, and I want to take you back to the 2012 discovery of the two aquifers in Turkana, I believe. Turkana Basin and Lotikipi. As a water sector player, to your knowledge, is this water that the country is tapping into already?
There is some tapping of one of the aquifer, which is, in terms of quality, is acceptable. But the Pin, I think that's the one who has a challenge of the chemicals that are in the water. It needs more purification before it is used. And this in the sectors we normally discuss, this is an area that really the ministry is focusing on, and it's harnessing to use that water for for food production, and also to provide that water to the county of Turkana. It's the aquifer is big enough. Actually, there is a way that water can be conveyed to other parts of the country, and these are the things that as a country we really need to look at and focus, and we provide the resources that will enable us to harness that resource, which is very important. We say water is life, and it doesn't matter the cost. What we need to do is to have that water delivered where it is required.
As we wind up, and we're only holding our breath for rationing in Nairobi, at least to get worse, given this 24.5, I believe, is the figure you give us as the water levels at Ndakaine. How does rationing in Nairobi or water scarcity in Nairobi compare to the rest of the country?
I think because of the concentration of people in Nairobi, I think this one is one of the areas that is really affected by the rationing. But there are other cities which have a bigger challenge. I take the case of Mombasa. They are able only to provide less than 20% of the water that they require. So generally allowed the coast. There are a number of areas where the water rationing is more severe than in Nairobi. We look at also in the rural areas, places like the northeastern region. There we have big challenge in terms of the water distribution, and even the availability and accessibility by the population. So it's an issue of the water, and what we need to focus as a country is how do we make this because the water is concentrated in the water towers. How do we convey it to those less fortunate areas where we have less water? And this is possible with the use of technology, with more investment. And we cannot go wrong if we invested in water services.
So we're expecting you to turn our taps off for 3 days. Just give us more information about that. When you're going to do that, and what for?
What happens? The leaks are well manifested during the dry season, and through the surveillance of our pipelines, we were able to detect that there is a section between Ngedo and Matala, our intake works, where we had a huge water leakage, and this is what we want to repair because it will enable us to deliver more water to Nairobi, and we are planning to have a shutdown of 24 hours. Actually, in the media, in the social media, I'm seeing people talking about 3 days, but actually we're only going to shut down for only 24 hours.
24 hours?
Yes, 24 hours.
Or date?
Yeah, the date is tomorrow. Starting at 6 a.m. in the morning up to 6 a.m. on Friday. That's the shutdown period. After that, we'll open the system. What happens with water, when you open, it takes time to build and to recover the shutdown, and that takes about 24 hours. So that we could say the supply will be affected only for 48 hours. After that, we will ensure that we go back to our distribution program.
All right. Thank you for that, Nairobi Water MD, Engineer Philip Gishuki. Thanks for your thoughts. We're taking another short break. When we return, dying moments of the show, we're looking at the social media trends. Brian Koth in studio with us. We're chatting shortly. Stay with us.